Hey guys, Tony here, back with an update on GameStop, even faster than I thought. This morning when I made the video, I told you if I was the CFO at GameStop, I would be actively selling these 45 million shares over the past week and into the coming weeks. Well, we got this update after hours today that they already finished. The 45 million ATM is complete. GameStop raised $933 million. That means that over the last week, they sold the shares for an average of about $20.73. And it is done. And I think that this is a fantastic thing for GameStop to put another $933 million on the balance sheet. Let's talk about a couple of common questions that are already out there on social media. First of all, is this going to affect earnings for Q1? It is not. A cash raise is going to show up on the cash flow statement and on the balance sheet. It is not going to affect the revenue or the earnings per share for Q1. The second obvious question is, how is having another $933 million or so going to affect the price action of GameStop and the valuation of GameStop? And I think this is a very important thing for you to consider the financials in a non-emotional way. A couple of the foundational things that I look at when we're valuing the company would be the book value and earnings per share. What is the forecasted future earnings of the company? We'll get into some other things like what could they do with $2 billion, but let's just start on the ground floor. In its most recent quarter, the book value of GameStop shares was $4.39 per share. That comes from taking our shareholders' equity and dividing it by the number of shares that were outstanding. So we have 1.339 billion divided by 305 million. That gives us $4.39 book value per share. How do we get the shareholders' equity? That is just a very simple formula. Total assets, 2.709 billion, minus total liabilities, 1.370 billion. You get the shareholders' equity, 1.339 billion. Now that we have more cash on the balance sheet, total assets is going to go up so we can compute a new book value for GameStop, book value per share. Because we don't have any updated numbers on things like accounts payable and accounts receivable, just for the sake of this video, I'm going to work with the numbers that we have here on last quarter's earnings statement. Let's just assume that the shareholders' equity stays essentially the same at $13.39, and we're going to add $933 million to that. That gives us a total shareholders' equity of $2.27 billion. And with 45 million shares added to the outstanding, that gives us 351 million shares, bringing the book value to $6.47 per share. The other number that we're going to be looking at to assign a valuation would be the earnings per share for the year. We know that based on the Q1 numbers that GameStop released last week, the earnings per share for Q1 is going to be somewhere between -9 per share and -12 per share. But we still have to think about what the entire year is going to look like. Still a little bit early for that, but Wall Street is forecasting 1 penny per share for this next fiscal year. We'll just have to see and take it quarter by quarter and see how accurate they're going to be on that. Now that we've got the foundational stuff out of the way, some of the more fun things to think about is what could GameStop do with $2 billion on the balance sheet? They could invest it. Right now, on the previous quarter, they had $921 million in cash. They had $277 in marketable securities invested, and they threw off for the year just over $50 million in interest income. Well, $49.5 million to be exact. Of that $933 million that they raised today, some of you are asking, did Ryan Cohen or the company itself or RC Ventures buy any of those shares? And we have an updated SC13D form that we could look at for the answer to that. This Schedule 13D shows the updated percentage ownership of RC Ventures. They still own the same amount as previous to this week, 36.8 million shares. And the ownership percentage of RC Ventures dropped from over 12% now with the updated float to 10.5%. So the answer is, as of today, no, RC Ventures did not increase their ownership in GameStop shares. But this whole thing of what is the company going to do with the money presents some interesting things to think about, because even if they had 200 million or so invested before, they could double the amount that they have invested to 400 million. They could triple it. to 600 million or more. We just don't really know. We're going to hopefully hear something from the company on what their plans are to do with that cash. That becomes interesting to think about because whether they're investing it in treasuries or other securities, it is another way for the company to use some of that free cash to increase the income on the income statement, potentially, if they invest it wisely. And the other obvious thing they could do is invest in strategic changes in the business or use that cash for a merger or acquisition. A lot of interesting things to think about now in this play. On my channel, I don't really get into the speculative stuff. Don't worry, there's going to be a lot of other people giving you those ideas. Try and focus on what is the fundamental value based on what we know now. And yeah, I think you absolutely could consider what could the company do with that cash and how could that translate into a different, improved valuation model for the share price. We know that the book value went up a couple dollars, so we probably need to adjust up our expectations at least a couple dollars from the worst case scenario that we were thinking. And on the best case scenario, hey, the sky is kind of the limit to what you could dream that GameStop could do with this money. Again, I'm not going to get into that on my channel because we try and work with the data and the numbers that we have in front of us. And really what I want to see is what is the company going to do to change the trajectory of the earnings per share? Because just on an earnings per share basis right now, it is still wildly overvalued, even with more money on the balance sheet. So Ryan, the ball is in your court. Let us know what you're going to do. There are a lot of people, I'm sure, waiting to hear from you. And I hope that we do get to hear from GameStop management on the upcoming earnings call. Sorry, I might have been getting ahead of myself there. I don't know that they've actually scheduled a call yet, but you know what I mean. I hope that they schedule a call and I hope that we hear from management this time around. As far as trading GameStop next week or over the next couple weeks, boy, it is going to be interesting. I couldn't even begin to tell you how this is going to play out as I'm thinking about it right now on Friday afternoon, because I know that there are going to be a lot of people excited on the retail side about this increased cash on the balance sheet, and rightly so. But on the flip side, I'm thinking like Wall Street is thinking, nothing really has changed as far as the company's trajectory on earnings per share. And that weighs heavily in the valuation of the price. So there is going to be this back and forth battle for days or maybe even weeks as the bears and the bulls fight it out. And it's just too early to say how that is all going to play out. So I think for traders, there's going to be some interesting volatility opportunities, and we'll just have to see what happens. For investors, like if myself, I want to invest in GameStop for the long term, I'm still going to be, for an investment side, waiting to see where the new support is once all of this excitement kind of wears off and things settle down. And we might not know where that point is until we get past the next earnings date, the one coming up here in June. I think it's safe to say that it's going to be anything but boring in GameStop land over the next couple weeks. So play it safe, play it smart, and let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. What are your plans for trading or investing in GameStop? What are your thoughts on how this is going to play out over the next couple weeks? And who knows, maybe we get another wild card announcement from GameStop. That certainly could be a game changer. As always, guys, thank you for watching. I am Tony Denaro, and I will see ya on the next video.